We're getting close here. Today, I want to talk about, should you buy a CB radio for prepping? The answer is interesting, I think. And we'll talk about it here. I'm just trying to get all my stuff ready, but thanks for joining me. Not so heavy rock and roll crazy music intro this time. What's this one called? Sweet Dream. Sunset Dream, sorry. Sunset Dream. A little more chill. Had a good day today. Had to get a new phone. Right here. I had to get a new one. This is not the new one. But these things right here seem to run our lives. Does anybody have control over this, whether this works or not? I mean, do you have total control over your phone, whether it's going to operate for you or whether it is going to shut off by some unknown reason? There's going to be a grid down thing, the whole prepper scenarios, EMPs, grid down situation, or maybe just something bad happens to where it can't get service or whatever to your phone for a while. I remember the big shutdown from Verizon a while back, and people were freaking out. And it was just a few hours. Oh man. Anyhow, yeah, we don't know when these things are going to go out on us. We have no idea. We're not in control of them. The only thing you have control over your phone is whether you charge it up and turn it on and pay your bill. You have an agreement with the company. The rest is out of your hands. So a prepping scenario, you're SOL if you didn't have your phone, and chances are that that's probably going to be the case. So what do you do? Well, you got options. You have different communication options, and whether you should buy a CB or not really depends on who you are. CBs can be a challenge. They are, to me, it was a stepping stone for ham radio for me. That's how I got into ham radio, essentially, is stepping stone from CB into that. A friend of mine was going to use a ham radio to launch a rocket, and I thought that was pretty cool, so I went ahead and got my technician license, and I don't know if that ever happened. I don't remember if it did or not. I don't think it did, but still, then I had my tech license and I started buying some radios, and I was familiar with CB over the years, how to install it in your car and to set the SWR, put antennas up, things like that. CB was a stepping stone to amateur radio. I think it really lends itself to that avenue of progression. Ham radio is better than CB radio. I don't care about the arguments out there, whatever. If you think CB is better, it's just one of those things. I'm not going to argue about it, but if you think CB is better than ham radio, and I heard a guy saying he gave up his ham license to, there wasn't any 2-meter in his area, so he's selling that, and he let his ham license expire and all that stuff, but he was perfectly happy with CB because it did the same exact thing. And I just shook my head. I was like, all right, well, there's a lot up for debate there. Maybe it did a lot for him, in his area. CB was probably perfect for him in that area. But ham radio opens the doorway wide open to a whole new world of experimenting, building antennas, learning things, frequency ranges, bands, radios, antennas, power settings, different power options. You can't run an amplifier legally on CB. You can't run 1500 watts on CB. Some people do, but it's illegal. But my point is, ham radio is where I'm going with this whole thing of comms. And you don't have to get your ham license to be successful in what I'm going to present here down the road. But it's the thing to do. The ultimate comms, I believe, is ham radio. And I'm not talking about digital ham radio, because that's dependent on Wi-Fi as well. DMR and these other ones, you got to have internet. I'm talking about good old ham radio, where you have a radio and a microphone and your own power source and your own antenna, and you decide when that thing turns on and when it turns off, when you transmit it, when you don't. So that's what I'm talking about. Cell phones, you don't have the power and control over it. These are wonderful. I'm not getting rid of it ever. I love it. They're one of the most amazing pieces of equipment engineering we've ever had in our history. It's awesome. It's great. But they're unreliable. Here's another thing I was thinking about too. I've had this thing 2 years. 2 years. I've had this radio since I can remember. I can't remember when I got this thing. 25 years ago, 20 some years ago. Nothing wrong with the thing. Still working. Still working right there. It works just fine. Why can't you make this last 25 years? I swear they put timers in these things, like self-destruction timers. And these are spendy too. Radios are spendy. Ham radios is spendy as well. But to my point of, do you need a CB for comms or not? It just depends on who you are. If you want to pursue the pathway from CB into ham radio, whether it be a hobby or for emergency communications, ham radios or amateur radio is at the center of emergency communications, and there's many examples of that. It's a natural progression. To me, it was. Some people it's not. You can stay with CB and have a good time and have fun, and CB works real good. It works as good as now today as it did back when it was in its heyday. Works just fine. So there's nothing wrong with it. But to take a CB radio and have to, if you're a person that is going to follow that progression, or if you don't mind setting up something, if you're into the hobby and you want to explore that, buy a CB. See where it leads you. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be a good setup for you. We can talk about down the road what CBs to get and stuff like that. But say you're someone like my mom or grandma or somebody, Dave down the road and his wife don't want to go into all that stuff. They don't want to have an antenna. They don't have a place for an antenna. Maybe CB isn't the option for them. It's generally lends itself to rural areas, things like that, but maybe another type of radio is for them. Something easier, still channel based. CB's channels, you got channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have some CBs going to sideband. We'll explain sideband down the road, but Some CBs have sideband, but they're all channel based. You got 1 through 40. They are adding FM though. That's the thing I forgot to talk about in my other CB video. They are adding FM. That would be cool. That's gonna be cool, but I don't know when they're gonna be doing that, and I don't know when, say, Cobra or President or something's going to start coming out with FM CBs, the option to have FM. So that at that point you'd have AM, FM, and sideband, which would be pretty cool. It's a good radio. That's how it should be. It'd be more like a 10-meter radio. Give you a little bit. FM would travel a little bit further than and have different characteristics than AM radio would. So it'd be better even then for prepping. So it's a good avenue to go. But if you didn't want to do that and you wanted to do a channel based, easy to operate, say FRS, say GMRS, and we'll explain those two later. But there are other options down the road. But to buy a CB, whether or not you should buy a CB depends on what you're looking for and who you are. And I think that's really the bottom line. If you want to expand your comm center, your station, your ham shack, whatever you want to call it, comm central, in your emergency scenario, go with the CB. And then some of the things are interchangeable. The coax on the CB is interchangeable with other radios, so you wouldn't have to buy a new coax. There's a CB base unit or base station antenna, like the Antron is. I had one of those. It was a great antenna, but you could run 10, 11, and 12 meters. 10 and 12 meters are in the ham bands. So it is kind of similar in some areas. So it's perfect stepping stone in ham radio. And all you gotta do is get your technician license and get started. But should you buy a CB, really boils down on what you want to do. If you have enough room, if you have ingenuity and kind of a curiosity about electronics and stuff like that, and you're not worried about a little bit of work to put it together, it's cheap, it's fairly easy, it's no license, and I would say wholeheartedly yes if that's who you are. But I would say wholeheartedly no if that's not who you are. You want something simple you can hold in your hand that will work similarly to a CB radio and different characteristics a little bit. Then try GMRS or FRS or something. Just depends on what you want to do. But there is another emergency nets out there. There are emergency nets. I can't remember the name of it, but Channel 3, look up Channel 3 emergency nets, and they do check-ins in their community on Channel 3 on CB, and then they also go to FRS. And I know there's a lot of GMRS out there too in our area. I don't hear CB much. I haven't been on it that much, but when I was, it's kind of faded out in our area. Ham radio is growing. It's getting big. It's huge. I hear new call signs all the time here where I'm at, and which is awesome. I think that's great. But yeah, depending on your cell phone is not an option in a prepping scenario. It's just not. Now there is something cool. I'm just going to mention this too. There is a FRS. Sony has a FRS. I believe it's Motorola. That if you are it's a FRS radio. If you're within range, you can Bluetooth it to your phone, and you can do messaging through your cell phones. So it is a little bit more secure. But when you're using a CB or an FRS or GMRS or even ham radio, it's not private. If you have something you can listen in on that frequency, it's not private. But if you're within range, you can send a message and nobody else can hear it. It's send kind of a digital packet message to the other radio in your group. So it's kind of a cool thing. So I'll go into that a little bit more, but yeah, depending on your cell phone is not really an option. Setting up a CB radio, you can have a solar system going into a set of batteries where either like this one that you could run through an inverter. Some of these mobile radios you can just clip right onto the battery terminals. You can decide when it turns on and when it turns off, and if you can have your own power station, communication station, and self-sufficiency, and you got your own comms doing it that way. That is much better than having nothing, and hearing what's going on around you would be very important. I don't really know, nobody knows what to expect with all of this stuff going on, but I think it's a fun hobby no matter what. I hope it never happens. I hope we can goof around with our cell phones. I just wish they would last longer. So you know, is what it is. We're gonna have to call these guys. Let's see here. This is the song that I want to play. I have to call the phone manufacturers and tell them to get their crap together. Otherwise, we're all going to go back to the old ways. CB and landlines. All right, you guys, tell me what you think in the comments, please. Please subscribe. Don't forget to hit that button and like. Helps me out to grow the channel. That's my goal here, is to get further down the road with YouTube. So it'll be fun. I can produce more videos and be really encouraging. So anyhow, thanks again. Take care and God bless.